All right, hello wine drinking people. Today is Tuesday, the 19th of June. Getting ready for my summer vacation coming up in about a week or so. So getting in a few great tastings before that. And last night, no exception, we had Giorgio Rivetti here. And, last night it kind of made me reminisce and feel, man, this last 14 years has gone by very quickly because we were in on the ground floor with La Spinetta Winery. I remember when I first bought the store in 1998, the very first release, the 1995 Gallina Barbaresco, and then the 1996 Starderi, the first vintage of that wine, and 1997 Valierano. Just a few short years after that, these wines became some of the most sought-after Barbarescos coming out of the Piedmont. And just to think this winery, it's not been around that long, 1977, when Giorgio's father started the winery. They became famous for Moscato, of all things, and been buying up some of the best vineyards that they could afford over the last 20 years. And slowly, these guys have amassed some of the greatest vineyard sites in the Piedmont and in Tuscany today. That's right, Giorgio broke ground in Tuscany, and we wanted to be the first people to break ground on some of the new wines from there. The 2007 Chianti, the first time shown in South Florida here at the Wine Watch last night. And, well, he started, he wants to keep everything indigenous. The grapes that are used in Tuscany, the grape there is Sangiovese, the grape used in the Piedmont, Nebbiolo, and Barbera, of course. And another reason me and Giorgio get along, he doesn't make Dolcetto. Life is just too short for grapes like Dolcetto, in my opinion. And not a bad wine, but you can get Barbera for the same tariff and a much better choice, a much longer-lived wine. So we busted out some old friends. I had a couple of wines from my cellar, the 1998 Starderi and the 2000 Starderi. This has been my favorite crew overall over the years, even though, Gallina in some vintages is better, Valierano in some vintages really shines. But overall, for me, I've always liked Starderi better. So I wanted to show people in a range of this wine, why you keep this wine in your cellar. And even though it's only been made since 96, I would say, this is a wine you keep 20 or 30 years in a great vintage, like 96, 98. The star of the show this evening, 2000, not far behind it though. We started out with the newest acquisition, Contratto Millesimato Brut, which, this is the first house to make sparkling wine in the Piedmont, founded in 1867 by Giuseppe Contratto, and, that seemed appropriate for Mr. Rivetti when he decided we want a sparkling wine house. Let's go for the very first. We have some history here, and this wine is a blend of 80% Pinot Noir and 20% Chardonnay. This wine spends almost 4 years on the yeast before disgorgement, so you get some of that development in this, the nose on this wine, some almonds, some white flowers, some lovely pear and apple fruit, though still really fresh on the nose. A smooth and creamy wine on the palate, lovely mousse, layers of flavor on the finish, and lovely freshness and minerality, something that you get in all of these wines, a sense of place, excellent juice, and about the same price as you're going to pay for non-vintage Brut champagne today, $31 a bottle. All right, not the Toscana Vermentino, the next wine, and this is a light, simple wine. That's what it's meant to be. If you go into any restaurant in Tuscany, you're going to get a glass of Vermentino or Vernaccia. Those are the two white wines they make there. This just so happens this varietal does very good in the southern region of Chianti, and that's where the Rivetti's vineyard are located there, so a natural choice for them. A lovely fresh floral character to the green apple and white grapefruit citrus here. A light gravelly note here too, but like I said, really just a simple, light, refreshing wine on the palate. Floral and kind of some ginger spice notes showing on the finish. A very good, well-balanced wine here, and at under 20 bucks, a great wine for the summertime. All right, the La Spinetta Chardonnay. I don't know why I show these wines that we can't get anymore. They only make 200 cases of this wine and the Sauvignon Blanc, two of the greatest white wines made in the Piedmont. And, this is why I show it, because, we showed Giorgio some love. He said, man, I think this is as good as Angelo Gaia's Chardonnay, and it's only a fifth of the price. Look at this, a 2002 vintage Chardonnay. This is the last bad vintage, really bad vintage I had. Like, Gaia made no Barbaresco, none of his black and white label wines. Rivetti made none of his single vineyard Barbarescos, but this 2002 Chardonnay still drinking marvelously on the second day. So really lovely ripe apricot and peach fruit, showing a little bit of honey there as well. Some caramelly notes, really exotic nose. Like I said, still opening up nicely on the second day, still quite alive. Lemon drop candy fruit, a little wet stone quality, the honey character, and lovely freshness and balance in this wine. Hey, we may have some 2003 that we've unearthed in some part of the United States here. That's what our little our friends from Indigenous Selections have told us, so we may have that coming for you. Keep an eye out for that, and like I said, we may have got 4 or 5 cases of the new releases. The 09's coming. All right, the La Spinetta Chianti Reserva Casanova. This is a lovely classic Chianti, and it's not a Chianti, not from the Chianti Classico region, but Chianti. There's 7 different zones in Chianti, and this is 100% Sangiovese, though. That's the important thing. All of the, the best grape varietal in Tuscany is Sangiovese. Brunello di Montalcino, 100% Sangiovese, as are the other great Chianti producers, Fontodi, Felsina, and just to name a couple there. But this wine had that lovely fresh floral quality you get from Sangiovese, pure Sangiovese, a little barnyard note, some hints of that earth, the mushroom, a good amount of that ripe berry fruit, though, and really classic Chianti nose to me. The Colli Pisani region is where these vineyards lie, and they could have called everything from this winery Chianti, but Giorgio wanted to develop this as a brand, and Cesana, Sessantino, the 2 single vineyard wines that he makes, the marquee wines. These are the older vines on the property, and a little bit of new oak, large and small, mixed in there. You do get a little spice from that, but lovely concentration on the palate, nice structure, ripe tannins, and lovely freshness in this wine. It's not heavy at all. Excellent bottle of Chianti. All right, the La Spinetta Barbera Bianzo. This is an 85-year-old vineyard. That's a secret to all of these wines, the vineyard, and they only make 3,000 cases of this. Always one of my favorite wines. This and the Gallina, the 2 single vineyard Barberas, among the best Barberas you'll find in Italy, and among the best wines from La Spinetta, as good as the single vineyard Barbarescos, in my opinion. You could keep this wine for a decade or more, the 2008. Even though Barbera doesn't have the tannins, it has wonderful acidity, just like the Pinot Noir varietal in Burgundy. Dark cherry and blackberry fruit on this wine, some fresh plowed back earth, notes of black tar and truffle, lovely concentration here on the nose, bright and fresh blackberry fruit showing through on the palate with lovely freshness, those dark spices coming through on the finish, and even better on the second day. This wine needs a few years in the bottle. That lovely black truffle and mocha note really shining through on the second day. Most excellent. One of the wines of the night, folks. The La Spinetta Barbaresco Bordoni is next, and Bordoni, a very famous man in the Piedmont, or, well, soon to be a very famous man. He's a farmer, very good friends with Giorgio's father, and Giorgio's father would always ask him, will you sell this vineyard to me? And he thought it was a great vineyard site, and he would always say, no, I'll never sell. And then, he's 90 years old now, 92 years old. He still works in the vineyard. Finally, after Giorgio's father passed away, he doesn't have any heirs, and he said, Giorgio, I'd like you to, buy my vineyard. He goes, it's $1 million for a hectare in the Piedmont today for prime vineyard land like this. Giorgio goes, I already have plenty of Barbaresco, but he goes, no, you don't understand. I don't care about the price. I just want my name to be all over the world. So he calls Giorgio today when he's in Japan. Giorgio, you're in Japan. Is my wine there? Is my wine there? So he's a very interesting character, and that's what the Piedmont is all about, this camaraderie that you feel with the people there, a sense of place. And this wine definitely shows it. Really lovely floral and fruity bouquet, that raspberry and violet floral, mint notes, red licorice, a lovely concentration on the palate. Typical Barbaresco, though, very elegant. I don't want to say light because it has a lot of nuance in this wine. You could keep this wine for another 10 years in the cellar. Some chalky tannin showing up on the finish. Some smoky, meaty notes showing on the second day with this wine, but still very fresh. An excellent bottle of Barbaresco at $53. And then the Barolo Garetti. Both of these wines, this is their first vintage, 2006. More groundbreaking stuff here from La Spinetta. This fruit used to go into the Campe Barolo, and it's from a flat part of the vineyard where the vines do not have to go down as far to get nutrients. So it makes a little more simple style wine, not as much minerality to it, and a little more forward. So lovely rose petal, classic Barolo notes, though. Camphor, some tar, and black spice, cherry liqueur-like fruit on the nose, a little red licorice spice, solid core of fruit on the palate, lovely silky smooth texture. One of the things I love about Nebbiolo, even though it has that tannins, it still has this lovely impression almost of silk on your palate, lovely floral notes, a really wonderful, complex wine, and definitely needs a little time in the cellar. Excellent juice as well. All right, the Barbaresco Starderi. This was our wine of the night, or flight of the night. Starderi has always been one of my favorite vineyard sites, very close to Gallina, but to me it just has a little more exotic spice to it and seems to be a little more concentrated or rich. Gallina is always a little lighter. And then Valierano usually is the largest of the 3, but Starderi is always a rival for that, the biggest of those 3 wines, in my opinion. Lovely rose petal and floral bouquet here, exotic oriental spices, cherry liqueur, a minty character, lovely truffly, earthy notes, smooth and silky on the palate. This 2006, lovely vintage to drink young even, very appealing, even though it is classic, still has some lovely fruit right now. and these floral and spice notes coming through on the finish in this wine. Really long and lovely concentration here, but still very balanced, and this wine needs some time. Most excellent juice, the 2006 Starderi. The 2000 Starderi, this was a 100-point vintage in the Spectator. This wine had some lovely classic tar, earthy, truffly notes lifting from the glass, Asian spices, dark cherry liqueur, and in just a few minutes, this wine opened up very quickly. Lovely richness on the palate, smooth, silky tannins, very drinkable right now, but still a concentration level in this wine, it's going to last another 10 or 20 years. Most excellent juice, and I had that as my pick of the wine of the night until a little later on in the night when the 98 really started to show its stuff. This 98, like lovely menthol and camphor note to that dark cherry fruit, a lovely dried flower, spice bouquet, red licorice, black tar, classic Barbaresco, smooth and silky on the palate, and still had this tannic bite to it though on the finish. Still a velvety texture, but the tannin still needs some time to resolve in this wine. Lovely complexity, and the 2000 just seemed to have a little less to it. The 98 seemed to be the wine for the long haul, a killer wine. Still needs some more years in the cellar though. And then the Chianti Barolo 2003, I wanted to show this wine because 2003, a very hot year, a difficult year, and Giorgio made some great wines even in 2002, as we saw with the Chardonnay. 2003 Chianti, a lot of people's wine of the night. A very steep vineyard site. First vintage of this wine was 2000. It was one of the wines of the vintage that year, and the Wine Spectator got 98 points. And I always say you can't drink points, but it's still drinking beautifully right now. Lovely cherry cola-like notes lifting from the glass here. Some menthol, black truffle, really enticing bouquet, lovely floral qualities, exotic spices, a really distinct earthiness to it that is Barolo. And you definitely get bigger wines in Barolo. The Barolos definitely showing their stuff tonight. Very sweet and ripe on the tongue, though. This 2003 vintage, really hot, but showing some smooth, some tannins here, some tannic grip on the second day. The tannins really standing out in this wine and showing its cojones that it is Barolo, the king of all wines. Still needs some time, but lovely spice. Most excellent juice, this Chianti 2003. And then the wine of the night, the Moscato d'Oro. We sold more of this than any other wine last night. Well, Giorgio talked it up. It was his son Andrea's first wine, the 1998 vintage, first wine he made by himself. He came to Dad and said, I want to make this wine, a Pasito style of Moscato. They had this incredible vineyard site, and this wine ferments for like 2 years or something. I mean, it's an incredible thing because it stops after it gets warm and then it gets cold again. It gets warm and ferments, and and it takes a very long time to make. It takes 4 to 5 years in barrel, and a very expensive process. But it's what it really has. When you have aromatic varietals you make in dessert wine like this, they just have an incredible perfume on the nose, a lovely scent of lavender, peaches, apricots, just incredible complexity and incredible freshness on the palate for a wine that is this old, 2005, and spends this much time in oak, and that lovely honey and orange peel coming through on the finish, and was fabulous with the chocolate creme brulee, one of the greatest desserts ever here at the Wine Watch. That's what we had to drink with Giorgio Rivetti. I'm your host, Andrew Lamposoni, signing off for the Wine Watch, saying remember, always drink the good stuff first.